That's right, Jen. What's more of a bother than taxes? Now, this year, of course, the deadline for filing has been extended. And for some Bay Area residents, there is free help. Our next guest has been the executive director of Tax Aid since 2013. And prior to that, Jill Sturm worked in the Peninsula and San Francisco at Habitat for Humanity. Jill, welcome to the Great Pause.
Thanks, David. I'm really happy to be here.
So, can you tell our viewers about TaxAid? Who is your workforce and who do you serve?
Absolutely, happy to. TaxAid is one of my favorite topics, actually. So, TaxAid is a nonprofit. We were founded in 1988 by attorneys actually from Morrison and Foerster here in San Francisco, who really wanted to make sure people with low income could receive expert tax assistance and get the full tax refunds that they deserve. So here we are 32 years later, going strong. Our volunteer base is mostly CPAs and accountants and attorneys who volunteer their time, and they keep coming back year after year.
Now, of course, the tax deadline has shifted this year. I know whenever I speak to our tax guy at the beginning of the year, he's like, oh, the weeks before April 15th and after are really stressful. But this year, of course, even though the tax deadline has been shifted, I imagine that it's made more work for you, not less. How has that impacted your work and workload?
That's a great question. Well, it's sort of like this whole thing, the Great Pause, has really slowed everything down for all of us, right? And we're really taking this time to reevaluate what's important to us. And I have to say, taxes are not the top of that list for a lot of people. So a lot of people are waiting. They know they have a couple more months. However, the clients that we help are people that really depend on their tax refunds. So the average income of the people we help is $22,000 a year. And many of those folks are working families with children, and they will get tax refunds of $6,000 or maybe even up to like $12,000. So during a time like this in the history where they might not be able to work, that tax refund is more important than ever. So we have to keep going. Even though we're in a shelter in place, we are helping people virtually with their taxes.
So even though the deadline has been extended, if someone wants to file early, does that mean that potentially they could get their refund earlier?
Absolutely, absolutely. So people are getting their refunds. We are highly encouraging people to electronically file their tax returns instead of mailing them in, because I think the IRS is not at full capacity because, they're all over the country and they are also sheltering in place as well. So we're telling people, don't mail things in. Let's electronically file your return. Let's get your deposit direct deposited into your bank account so you're not waiting for a check to come in the mail.
Now, of course, there's another way that Uncle Sam is delivering money this year. Those is the checks that supposedly are coming from the stimulus. Are some of your clients and colleagues concerned about the stimulus checks? What should people know about that and unemployment and how both of those things work together or not?
That's a great question. So we luckily have like a crackerjack team of CPAs and accountants that scoured all of that information, and they actually read the entire stimulus bill of 800 plus pages. And we have a full page dedicated on our website with all of the information about the economic impact payments on our website at tax-aid.org. What's interesting about the stimulus is that, some people earn such a low income or they don't have an income and they're not required to file a tax return. However, they might need to take some action in order to get that stimulus payment. So we do have links on that page of our website where people can find all their questions answered and put in their bank information in particular on the IRS website to make sure that they get that stimulus check.
800 pages sounds like a lot. How unusual. Yeah. Did you read all 800 pages?
Oh, I told you we have these crackerjack CPAs that read it all, and particularly through the lens of the people that we serve, right? So we serve people below a certain income rate, and all of those folks will qualify for the stimulus because I think, our income limit is 55,000. I think the stimulus it's under 75K. So anybody that tax aid would help is going to get a stimulus check, which is great. They need
Right.
it. They really need it.
Right. In your experience, though, how unusual is it? I'm sure probably the answer is going to be unprecedented, like everything else for the last 2 months, to have a bill of this magnitude and this complexity come out basically in less than 2 weeks.
Right. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, I think there was maybe under the Bush administration a stimulus of a much smaller amount several years ago. Um, the closest thing to this would have been the Affordable Care Act, which was also kind of administered through the IRS and the healthcare initiative there, but nothing this size. And who knows, maybe more is coming down the pike. So we'll just have to wait and see. It's just unprecedented times. That's the word I keep hearing, unprecedented, and it's so
Right.
accurate, right?
Well, last question. We've only got just a few more moments, but I couldn't help but notice your shirt, which I'm sure was
Ah,
consciously worn. I count.
that's right.
This is a
That's
census
right.
year. So I imagine
That's
that's
right.
all about the census. Tell us about how I count and how does the census impact taxes?
Absolutely. So actually, the census impacts every single person living in the United States. It's a critical exercise we have to go through every 10 years to make sure we know who lives in the United States. So it's not just because you see those signs on the freeway of what the population is when you enter a city, but for everything that you can imagine is determined by population data. In this time during a pandemic, how critical is it for us to know how many people live here so we can have our emergency services and our healthcare services prepared for the amount of people that might fall ill. So this is a super important thing, but it's everything else you can think of, like how much housing gets built in a community, where schools go, where fire stations happen. I mean, all of these things, if we don't know who lives in the community, those services won't be available to us. So we are really making sure that people take this time during the shelter in place to respond to the census. It's the first time ever that it's being conducted online and by phone, and it couldn't be easier to do. We really want to make sure people do it that way instead of having to have a census taker come to their door and knock on their door to get that information. We don't want anybody to risk their health or to answer the door at this point, right? It's super important. So we really want people to go online. Again, we have a whole page on our website dedicated to this too. And yes, you count. Everybody needs to count. It doesn't matter about legal status or anything. Every person living here needs to be counted.
Got it. In our last 10 seconds, tell people again where they can go online to find you and this free tax help.
Absolutely. So our organization is Tax Aid, and our website is tax-aid.org, and we can find all kinds of information. You can find our contact there and how we can help you now with your taxes and to get your refund.
Great. Thank you, Jill, so much, and especially thank you to all your volunteers. Jen,
Great.
back to you.